I spent the last 2 years working as an OTR truck driver for Landstar and night transportation. During those 2 years, I was a company driver, lease operator, and owner operator. While driving, I kept track of all of my expenses, revenue, and cash flow for all three positions, and I took all of this information that I compiled into 3 separate spreadsheets in order to show exactly what truck drivers made. And in this episode, I'm going to share those spreadsheets with you. Let's go. Welcome back to Trucking the Seven Seas. This is episode number 79, and in this episode, we're going to compare company driver pay versus lease driver pay versus owner-operator pay. If you're new to this channel, welcome. I started this channel in order to show exactly what truck drivers make. We started as a company driver working for night transportation, moved on to a lease operator working for night transportation, and then an owner-operator working for Landstar. While driving in all three of these positions, I kept track of all of my expenses, revenue, and net cash flow, and I compiled this information into 3 separate spreadsheets. And now we're going to go over all 3 of the spreadsheets in order to show exactly what each position paid. The night transportation company driver pay will be in 2023. The night transportation lease operator pay will be partly in 2023 and then partly in 2024. And then the Landstar owner operator pay will be only for the year 2024. Now, unlike a lot of videos you see out there, the pay you're about to see is not going to be opinion. It's going to be cold hard data that I compiled over the last 2 years. Every week I would post a video showing my pay and profitability. I did this for 2 years straight in order to compile a huge data set that I'm going to share with you in this video. I did this in order to show exactly what truck drivers make, because when I was coming up in the industry, I could not find this information. All I would find were sob stories or bragging or some other opinion that really wasn't accurate. With all that said, this video should give you a much better understanding for what truck drivers make in all 3 positions and should help you determine whether it's worth it or not. Now, a few caveats before we begin. I am not bragging about this and I'm not ashamed about this. I'm just simply posting the numbers that I made over the last 2 years in all 3 positions. Also, none of this is a guarantee. This is what I made in the years 2023 and 2024. Your pay will vary, so none of this is a guarantee. Also, I'm not sponsored by Night Transportation or Landstar. These just happen to be the 2 companies I started working for. I don't get anything if you go work for night transportation, and I don't get anything if you go and work for Landstar. And frankly, I don't care either way. Now, for each position and each spreadsheet, I posted a final video showing the overall pay, and you can find the spreadsheets in the About sections down below. Each video went into great detail on how the pay structure was and a breakdown of each spreadsheet. If you're interested in seeing the pay as a company driver working for night transportation, you can find that video up top right now. And also it'll give a breakdown of how the spreadsheet works. Then if you're interested in the night transportation lease operator pay and how that worked, you can find a video summarizing all that right up top right now. And finally, if you were interested in the Landstar owner operator pay, you can find that video up top right now. And all the spreadsheets, once again, are in the About section down below. Now, we're not going to go over each spreadsheet in detail in this video because it would just simply take way too long. We're just going to summarize the pay of each position. So if you want to know more about each spreadsheet, you're going to have to watch those videos, because if I went over them in this video, it would be like a 2-hour video. So now we're going to go over all 3 spreadsheets side by side. I'm going to cram it into a single screen, so it might be a little cramped, but it should work out okay. So let's get into it. Okay, it's spreadsheet time. Okay, so just going left to right over here, you'll see the Landstar owner-operator profit loss spreadsheet. That is the most recent one. And then in the middle, you got the night transportation lease profit loss. That is the second oldest one. And then I originally started as a night transportation company driver, and that's over here. So just quickly go over each spreadsheet. Not going to go into super big detail, but just an overview. The Landstar and the night transportation lease spreadsheet are basically identical. There is very little difference between these two because they were both, they were both basically the same. You had, fuel, maintenance, and then like other expenses and stuff like that, fixed costs, stuff like that. So I use basically the same spreadsheet on these ones. However, the company driver pay is a little bit different. Obviously, as a company driver, I didn't have to pay for fuel or maintenance costs or stuff like that. So it is a little bit different. They're pretty similar. You can follow along pretty easily on both of them. But unlike let's say the owner operator pay at Landstar, there's no real expenses on the night transportation spreadsheet because you're a company driver and you don't have expenses. So just little stuff like that is going on. I zoomed in on all three of them so they'd all fit. So there's a lot of information hidden. So when you open up the spreadsheet, you'll see more information. I hid like all of the loads, like where they were going from and to, because that's just not relevant in this video. But if you click right here and you expand it, and there's a couple other stuff hidden on each of them, you'll see more information. Again, I can't go over every single spreadsheet because it would just be like a 2-hour video, so I'm not going to. But there's a lot of information hidden on these, and if you want to know more, just watch the previous videos that I mentioned earlier, and you should be able to get all of the information you want. All right, so just continuing on, you see here you'll have, at least on the lease and owner-operator spreadsheets, you have total expenses, total revenue, total profit loss. These are the three big ones I think most everybody's interested in, and you can see here in this example, the Landstar, there's my cost per mile, there's my total revenue, and there's what I made. Same thing over here on the night transportation. You'll see total expenses, total revenue, cash flow, same idea. And then over here on the company driver pay, it just shows the overall, there's no expenses again. And then the total rate per mile is right there, what I made as a company driver. All of these numbers are gross pay. There is no taxes in them. I don't go over taxes because, well, taxes are different for everyone, and I'm not gonna go into that because it's just gonna vary wildly based on your circumstances. So all of this is just gross pay. All of this is just net cash flow. There are no taxes in there. There's none of that. So just be advised of that. Also, in all three of these positions, I was a dry van driver. So these are just dry van pay across the board. 53-foot dry van, tractor trailer. You know, the basic setup. So that's what we're doing in these videos, and that's what I've been doing for the last 2 years. And then if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see some other information. This is just other information I thought useful to the viewers. So it varies a little bit from position to position. Just shows like home time, layover days, detention, stuff like that on the company driver pay. And then down here, it'll show like my maintenance cost per mile and, you know, fuel cost per mile, stuff like that. Average load length. There's a bunch of information down here. Again, not going to go over everything. Just watch the videos and you'll get a total breakdown of all of it, but just briefly wanted to go over all of that just so if you're walking into this, you have a general idea of what each spreadsheet shows. All right, so right now I'm going to go over all three spreadsheets, the final numbers. Just going to go over just the final numbers. I'm going to hit each one, so I'm going to go over the Landstar profit loss spreadsheet, just the final numbers, and then going to move right on to the night transportation lease operator profit loss spreadsheet, just the final numbers, and then go over the company driver pay at night transportation, just the numbers. So I'm going to go through all of it, just spit out the numbers real quick, just read them off to you, just just read them off to you so you can see what the numbers are. And then afterward, I'm going to go back and just summarize everything and just discuss the benefits and disadvantages of each position. So we're going to do that right now. Okay, so for the Landstar owner-operator position, I drove a total of 78,940 miles. Total expenses were $64,972 at 82 cents per mile, and that is my cost per mile. Total revenue was $135,734 at $1.72 per mile. That brought my total profit loss to $70,762 at 90 cents per mile. Averages and other information. My average weekly paycheck at Landstar was $1,905. Total weekly miles, average weekly miles is 2,125 miles. My total fuel costs were $37,000 at 47 cents per mile. My total maintenance costs were $10,000 at 13 cents per mile. My other expenses totaled $17,000 at 22 cents per mile. If I kept that up for a 52-week period, I would have made $99,000 and drove a total of 110,000 miles. Landstar's 35% cut equated to $54,000 at 69 cents per mile. Total revenue was $190,000 at $5,000 per week. I deadheaded a total of 8,400 miles at 10% of total mileage. I was employed 260 days or 37 weeks. I took 34 days off. I had 226 days on duty. I took 68 total loads. The average load length was 1,161 miles. And if I had a $500 truck payment, I would have made $52,000. Okay, there was the Landstar profit loss, total profit loss. One thing I didn't mention, I did not have a truck payment at Landstar. So just be advised of that. I didn't have a truck payment at Landstar, but that was the Landstar total pay. So it was 90 cents per mile. There you go. That's what it was. Again, no truck payment. I would have made about 66 cents per mile if I did have a truck payment. So there's that one right there. And we're going to go ahead and just move right into the night transportation lease operator pay and go over those numbers. Totals on the night transportation lease operator pay. I drove a total of 48,977 miles. Total expenses were $53,497 at $1.09 per mile, and that was my cost per mile at night transportation. My total revenue was $88,280 at $1.80 per mile. That brought my net cash flow to $34,782 at 71 cents per mile. Averages and other information. My average weekly paycheck at night transportation as a lease operator was $1,512. Total weekly miles was 2,129 average weekly miles. Total fuel costs were $27,000 at 56 cents per mile. Total maintenance costs were $4,800 at 10 cents per mile. Other expense costs was $17,000 at 36 cents per mile. If I kept that up for a 52-week period, I'd make $78,000 and drive a total of 110,000 miles. I was employed 161 days, or 23 weeks, took 20 days off, 141 days on duty, 87 total loads, average load length was 563 miles, and my security deposit totaled $2,150. Okay, yeah, so there was the night transportation lease operator pay. In this spreadsheet, I did have a truck payment, so just be advised of that. We are somewhat comparing apples to oranges with these three positions, but still, I think it's worth making a video over. So I did have a $450 truck payment at night transportation. Still made 71 cents per mile after everything was said and done. The numbers are extremely similar in terms of average weekly miles. You notice average weekly mile is 2,100 here, 2,125, and 2,129 there. So that's damn close, right? So ran about the same in both positions, but there is the night transportation lease operator pay. And now we're going to go over the night transportation company driver pay. Okay, totals as a night transportation company driver pay. I drove a total of 74,641 miles. Made a total of $40,287 at 54 cents per mile. Average weekly miles is 2,195 miles. Average weekly paycheck was $1,184. If I kept it up for a 52-week period, I would have drove 114,000 miles and made $61,000. Again, all of these numbers were gross pay. I was employed 246 days or 34 weeks. Home time was 23 days off. I had 34 days of layover, 17 hours of detention. Detention and layover equated to $2,538 total. I was on duty for 223 days. Days on duty equated to $180. Spent 189 days actually on the road driving. And the days I was on the road driving, I made an average of $213. Average load length was 633 miles. And I drove an average of 395 miles per day when I was driving. Okay, guys, so there was the company driver pay. Now, this gets a little bit confusing because I'm comparing company driver to a lease operator to an owner operator. So everything, I had to change things up a little bit, and the spreadsheets aren't exactly the same as a result. So just be advised of that. If you got a little confused there, that's fine. Again, you would need to watch the previous videos in each spreadsheet in order to fully understand all of them. But for this video, what we're going to focus on is just the overall pay. So while working as a company driver, I made 54 cents per mile at night transportation. This was in 2023, so early 2023. Yeah, early 2023, and then halfway into, I think I stopped driving around, I want to say September or October of 2023, and that's when I did it. So it was like, I guess, 34 weeks, however much that equates to. So that's what that is. 54 cents per mile. I did have a couple years experience, so my rate per mile was a couple cents higher on average than if you're brand new. However, I would think since it's a couple years old, their new pay scale increased a little bit, I would hope, and you might, your opening pay might be similar to that. Again, not a guarantee. I'm just showing my numbers here. But yeah, 54 cents per mile. That's mega carrier pay. That's if you're brand new. That's that's mega carrier pay. That is what it is. $40,000. not very good. If I kept it up for an entire year, I would have only made $61,000, which, yeah, that's not very good at all, right? It's pretty bad. Um, my average weekly paycheck was $1,100. Again, not good at all. Night transportation, it's a mega carrier, pays like a mega carrier, and there it is. There's your mega carrier pay right there. Um, yeah, so didn't take too many days off. I took 23 days off in a 34-week period, so less than a day off per week. So that's not a lot of time off. I will mention I do live in my truck, so I was on the road pretty much constantly. So I always like to state, if you think you're just going to blow away these numbers and you're going to do a whole lot better, I think you're going to be sorely disappointed. You can certainly beat these numbers. If you take 0 days off in a 34-week period, you can do better. However, most people are going to take time off, and frankly, most of you are going to take more than 23 days off in a 34-week period. So there's that. While I was working at night transportation in 2023, if you didn't know, the market was terrible. It was probably worse than it is right now. So I was getting a lot of layover days. This is not normal. 34 days of layover in a 34-week period is really bad. That's a day a week. I was just like, I didn't have a load. So that's worth mentioning. 17 hours of detention, that's not too bad. I think I think I only got like $12 an hour at night transportation or something stupid like that for the layover pay. I don't remember exactly, but there's that. And then just some other information here, but that is the pay at night transportation. Not very good. That's a mega carrier, and then pays like a mega carrier. So there you go. You can definitely do better than that somewhere else, but that's what I got paid as a night transportation company driver over the course of 34 weeks. Okay? Then moving on to the center here, you'll see night transportation lease profit loss. So I was working for night transportation, then as a company driver, then just entered into one of their lease programs. Got a Freightliner. It is currently the Freightliner I am in right now. So I got a Freightliner at night transportation, drove it as a lease operator, then bought it out, and then moved on to a Landstar owner operator. And that was pretty much the path, and that worked out very well, just so you know. But started as a company driver, then entered a lease at night transportation, bought the truck out, moved on to a Landstar owner operator, and that's what we're recently doing. So that is what we're doing. But as a lease operator, I made 71 cents per mile. There you go, 71 cents per mile. That includes the truck payment. So it is what it is. Obviously better than the 54 cents per mile I was making as a company driver. So if you're wondering, the night transportation lease operator, it works. It does work. It's not designed to just make you go bankrupt and then the company takes you for everything that you have. If you enter the program and then you run decently hard, you will make money. No, it's not going to be great money. It's a mega carrier. It pays like a mega carrier, whether you're a company driver or a lease operator. But while I was there, I made 71 cents per mile. I drove for how many weeks? 23 weeks, so only about 6 months. Only about 6 months I was working there. 71 cents per mile. My mileage is interesting. I didn't notice this till I compared all three, but my mileage is actually almost identical in every single position. I mean, between the Landstar average weekly miles and the night transportation average weekly miles, it was only off by 4 miles, which is incredibly close. So basically, I ran just as hard in each position, and that's kind of reflected in the average weekly miles that that's what I ran. Oh, I should mention, these average weekly miles include time off. These average weekly miles include layover. These average weekly miles include maintenance days. So just be advised of that. When I am actually on the road driving, I do drive like 3,000 miles per week, something like that. But, there's delays, right? There's delays, there's layovers, there's maintenance days, there's just time off. And these average weekly miles have the time off and all of that integrated into them. So just be advised of that. All right, just some other notes here. Fuel costs. So this was in 2023. This was right after the whole Ukraine thing happened, and fuel costs went through the roof. So that's why that fuel cost is so high, is because the fuel prices at that time were like $4, $4.50 per mile, something like that. So very high. They've come down since then, so that's why that fuel cost is through the roof. Maintenance costs, 10 cents per mile. Pretty standard. Pretty standard. Other expenses, 36 cents per mile. You might look at other expenses as the fixed costs. There are some other things that are not fixed costs in there that I lumped into there, such as IFTA is in there. So if I had some IFTA payments, I put that in there as well. But these are pretty close to my fixed costs, which are 36 cents per mile. Again, if you want a further breakdown of that, you have to watch the other video. So as a lease operator, if I kept it up for an entire year, I would have made $78,000. Not great, especially considering the risk. So there's that. And I would have drove an average of 110,000 miles if I kept it up for a 52-week period. Again, that is just incredibly close all across the board. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. Almost identical. One thing to note, at Night Transportation, I did have a dispatcher, so I was not free to choose whatever loads I wanted. So I was kind of at their mercy. So be aware of that. I did have a dispatcher at Night Transportation. So if you're thinking, oh, you just didn't dispatch yourself correctly and that's why you didn't get high mileage, well, no, I had a professional dispatcher. So there you go, right? So anyways, other notes: 23 days off. 23 days off in a 23-week period. So, 20 days off in a 23-week period. Again, less than a day off per week. So if you think, oh, I'll just run harder, well, okay, be prepared to take 0 days off, and then you can do better. But there's that. And just some other notes: 500-mile average load length, and some other smaller stuff that doesn't matter too much. But either way, as a Night Transportation lease operator, I made 71 cents per mile over the course of 23 weeks. There you go. That's what I made. So obviously I did better than a company driver, but I took on greater risks. If I crashed a truck or did something stupid, it may have not worked out, right? So I'll let you decide whether that's worth it or not. There it is. It's up to you. I'm just posting the numbers here. Again, I'm not bragging about any of this. I'm just posting my numbers, and just to give you more information so you can make a better decision. Okay. But anyway, 71 cents per mile as a lease operator and 54 cents per mile as a company driver working for Night Transportation. There you go. So let's go ahead and do a quick summary of the Landstar owner-operator. Okay, so Landstar owner-operator. At this point, I did own the truck, so I bought it outright. So when I left Night Transportation, I purchased the truck outright, and I do own it outright. So it does kind of get apples to oranges here, because here I had a truck payment, and here I did not have a truck payment. So just be aware of that. But anyways, let's get into it. So made 90 cents per mile as a Landstar owner-operator. And for those of you who don't know, Landstar does pay a percentage based, whereas Night Transportation as a lease operator is just a flat rate. So at Night Transportation, it was a flat rate per mile. It was like roughly $1.80 on average, the loads paid per mile. And that didn't matter whether the market was paying $4 per mile or the market was paying $1 per mile. I got an average of $1.80 per mile. Whereas here at Landstar, it's pretty much market based. So you get a percentage of the load, 65% of the load. And if the load pays $4 per mile, you get 65% of that. And if the load pays $1 per mile, well, you get 65% of that. On average, I was booking loads for $1.72 per mile after Landstar took its cut, which is slightly lower than Night Transportation. Now, while I was working at Landstar, this was in the year 2024, and like 2023, it was an abysmal year. So it's a terrible year. This was one of the worst years on record. Fairly high fuel prices still. They came down a little, and very low freight rates and very high maintenance costs. So all that said, those are factors that you want to take into account. Landstar does pay percentage based, so if the market is doing really well and you're working at Landstar, you're probably going to do really well. If the market's doing really bad and you're working at Landstar, like it was here, then you're not going to do so hot as I did. So I only made 90 cents per mile with a paid off truck at Landstar, which is not very good. So if you did have a truck payment, so here I did a hypothetical truck payment of $500 per week. So if you did, let's say, have a $500 per week truck payment, I would have only made $52,000, which equated to 66 cents per mile. I'll just write that right there because I remember that number. Okay. Yeah. So I would have made 66 cents per mile at Landstar. But again, the market was terrible. If the market improved, I would have done a lot better. But basically, over the course of the last year, I worked for Landstar, or 9 months at Landstar, and I made 66 cents per mile if I had a $500 truck payment, which is slightly lower than night transportation. So in theory, over the last year, I probably would have been better at night transportation, which is kind of interesting. However, if the market would have gotten better, the market improves, I think I certainly would have done better at Landstar. Okay, so just some other notes here. 2,100 miles per week. Again, that is amazingly close to the night transportation mileage per week. I was averaging $1,900 per week in pay. Again, I don't have a truck payment, so that was very helpful. Fuel cost, 47 cents per mile. I did have an APU installed between the Landstar. When I left night transportation, I had an APU installed. I am planning on making a video of that and a review of that. But once I left night transportation, I had an APU installed, which was in play here at Landstar, but not in play here at night transportation. So be advised of that. So that did lower my fuel costs quite significantly. Maintenance cost, 13 cents per mile. Pretty standard. Most guys have about 10 to 15 cents per mile maintenance cost. Mine's at 13, so okay. Other expenses were 22 cents per mile. Same thing. Would have drove 110,000 miles if I kept up for a 52-week period. Now that mileage does include, again, remind you, time off, maintenance, stuff like that. So just be advised of that. I did calculate what Landstar took overall, and they took a total of $54,000 with their 35% cut. So there you go. That equated to 69 cents per mile. Now I will mention that Landstar's loads pay a lot more than the general spot market. So if you're looking at that going, that's insane, it's not quite accurate because their loads pay more. So while I'm paying them a 35% cut, which is equating to 69 cents per mile, their loads tended to pay maybe 40 or 50 cents per mile more than the spot market. So just be aware of that. Deadhead got a little insane there at the end. I started hauling loads from Los Angeles to Salt Lake, Vegas, and Phoenix, and then deadheading back because, for those of you who don't know, on the West Coast, the only real market is Los Angeles, and the loads going out of Los Angeles pay like $4 to $6 per mile, but the loads going back into Los Angeles pay like $1. So I decided just to pick up loads in Los Angeles, deliver it to, say, Vegas, and then deadhead back. So my deadhead got a little out of control there, but before I was doing that, it was closer to like 7%. So just be aware of that. That deadhead, not very accurate, actually, to be honest. Okay, yeah, and that's mostly it. I think I went over the big notes at Landstar. There it is. So there is basically 2 years of data that I collected over these three positions, and you can just compare them right side by side. It is a whole lot of data, so if you got a little confused, that's totally understandable. As I'm looking at these numbers, even I was getting a little confused, and I made the damn thing. So, if you're a little confused, it's okay. Again, you're going to have to watch each video. They're kind of long. I think each video was like 45 minutes long, summarizing each of these positions, which is why I wasn't going to do it here. But there's the 3 spreadsheets. They're all available in the About section down below, and you can open them. If you're interested in downloading them, you can just hit File, Download, and then you can download them to a Microsoft Excel sheet, and you can use them however you please. So, yeah, there's the spreadsheets. There's the pay, 54 cents per mile as a company driver, 71 cents per mile as a lease operator, and then as an owner-operator with a paid-off truck, I made 90 cents per mile at Landstar. Okay, definitely comparing apples to oranges here. Company driver pay, it's a flat rate per mile. Then I moved on to night transportation, which also was a flat rate per mile. And then I moved on to Landstar, which paid percentage based. So definitely comparing apples to oranges. However, this is basically the 3 main ways truck drivers get paid. As a company driver, you always get paid a flat rate per mile, like 60 cents per mile, 50 cents per mile. And then as a lease operator, you might get paid percentage, or you might get paid a flat rate per mile, depending on the company you work for. So, there's a little bit of variation there. And then when you're working Landstar, or say if you're working the spot market, you would just get a percentage based of the load. Or I guess if you're working spot market, you get the whole load. But another way to get paid is percentage based, which Landstar did pay that way. So while I am comparing apples to oranges, you're seeing the basic 3 ways a truck driver gets paid, and it should help you have a better understanding for how we get paid and whether it's worth it or not. Now, in all 3 of these positions, which one was worth it the most? Which one do I prefer? And I can tell you, It's pretty close. I mean, I wouldn't want to be a company driver for that. Obviously, if I was going to be a company driver, you'd want to get 60 or 65 cents per mile. This is not good, so this is the least desirable. However, if you're working for another company, you can definitely get paid more than this. So, I mean, just be aware of that. I personally would not want to be a company driver. That's just me. I like being a 1099 worker. It offers you a lot more freedom. And contrary to belief, you pay a lot less taxes as a 1099 worker. So as a contractor, as an owner operator, yeah, you have to pay 13% into Social Security, but the tax write-offs are extreme. So that's why I prefer being a company or a contractor, because uh, lower taxes and I can take my truck wherever I want. So that's really nice. So this is the least desirable position, despite no matter what the pay is. Even if I was getting 65, 70 cents per mile, this would, for me, would be the least desirable position. So that leaves the last two, a lease operator or an owner operator. And for me, I did like being an owner operator, free to choose my loads. So at Landstar, I should mention, I was booking my own loads. So I was free to go wherever I want, whenever I wanted. I didn't have to answer to anyone. I just booked the loads and went. So that was always really nice. Um, and I think for me personally, I preferred the Landstar position, even though the pay wasn't good. Now, if the market was better, I have no doubt I would have done better at Landstar than at Night Transportation. Uh, Again, Landstar, your pay is basically reflective of how the market is. So the market's bad in 2024, so I didn't do very well. If the market was better, I would have done a lot better. Here at Night Transportation, though, it's pretty flat. Like, you're gonna make pretty much the same amount, whether the market is on fire or whether the market is crap. So that's interesting to note. But for me personally, I preferred Landstar just by a little bit over Night Transportation, because I was able to choose my loads. I could go where I wanted. If I wanted to go home and visit family, I just booked a load and went, and I didn't really care. I didn't have to ask, right? I just went. Whereas here at at Night Transportation, I had a dispatcher. They would have to find a load. They're concerned with their bottom line, and sometimes it was hard to like get home or go where I wanted to go, right? So that's that's a problem at Night Transportation. That's really the reason why I would prefer Landstar. But yeah, so another note at Night Transportation, you do have access to their terminals, so that's another big one that does that's a benefit for them. They have very nice terminals all over the country. There's one in Fontana, which is like Los Angeles, which is super nice because then there's always parking there. So I knew if I was in Los Angeles while working for Night Transportation, they had a terminal with a shower or everything, and there was always parking available, which was really nice in Los Angeles. So that was kind of nice. They had gyms in most of their terminals. That was nice. There was a bit of community, so you go in, you can talk to somebody, talk to your dispatcher. So there's more of a social aspect when you're working for a company like Night Transportation, whereas Landstar, you're truly out there alone. So that's another factor in play. But yeah, I would prefer the Landstar position, even though I technically made a little less if I had a $500 truck payment. But I would prefer the Landstar position because I got to choose my loads. I got to go where I wanted. Didn't have to ask permission for anything. Very nice. And when the market improves, I firmly believe I would have made more at Landstar. If the market was better than it is right now in 2024, I would have done a lot better at Landstar. But I just was driving for Landstar when the market was complete crap. So that did make really lower the pay, which sucked. So, anyways, one last note. Somewhat mentioned it. The lease operator pay and the lease operator program at Night Transportation was not predatory. It was okay. Now, you're not going to make $1 million or anything, but it was not predatory. So I will point that out as well. It was okay. It did pay. You can succeed if you run, and it was not a predatory program. So there you go. It was not a predatory program. So that's just another note there. Okay, yeah. So there was the 3 different pay scales at 3 different positions: company driver, lease operator, and then an owner operator at Landstar. 2 years in the making, 2 years of data. So if it is just overwhelming, it's totally understandable. Again, probably a broken record at this point. I would encourage you to watch the other videos summarizing each of these spreadsheets. This is just a final summary of all 3 of them, and there's just a ton of information in these spreadsheets. So yeah, there it is. So when I was coming up, I could not find this information anywhere. I just kept getting opinions and sob stories and stuff like that. Some people would post a video showing them making like 20 cents per mile or whatever, or even in the negatives. And then some guys would show like them making like $2 per mile after everything was said and done. And I knew that the truth was somewhere in between, but I could not find it. So I said, you know what, I'm just gonna start this channel and I'm just gonna post all of this information as transparently as I possibly can in 3 different spreadsheets, 3 different positions. And that's exactly what I did. So now moving forward, I'm actually in the process of getting my own authority. I'm taking a little bit of time off, so just getting all that worked out. Once I have my own authority, I'll do the same exact thing I did here, where I will make a new spreadsheet. It'll be basically this one right here, or these 2 right here. Just gonna reuse it. And then I'm gonna post all of the information I can as transparently as I possibly can. Same thing, I'll go over my expenses, my revenue, and my net cash flow as a owner-operator with my own authority. And I'll show what I make as transparently as I possibly can to give you guys just the best information that I possibly can give you. So yeah. Okay, yeah, but that will pretty much do it for this episode. Again, if you're interested in these spreadsheets, you can find them in the About section down below. Then after you find them, you can hit File, Download, and you can download them to a Microsoft Excel sheet. And then after you download them, you're free to use them however you please. Stay tuned for the upcoming videos on getting my own authority. I will be posting some videos on that, and then again remaking a spreadsheet and showing my pay as a owner-operator. But that will do it for this episode. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.